By the time this video comes out, Champions Seoul is already well underway, but I want to take this time to talk about the official Valorant pick'em system. If you didn't already know, instead of using vlr.gg to do your Champions pick'ems, you can now instead use Riot's official pick'ems, accessible either in-game or through their website. Now instead of just feeling a sense of pride for being able to correctly guess which teams advance, the rewards based on how accurately people guess. At the time of scripting this video, the upper and lower bracket games have already been decided, meaning no one's been eliminated yet, so depending on what happens, my pick'ems may age very poorly. Starting with Group A, we have Fnatic, DRX, Crew, and Bilibili. I have Fnatic and DRX advancing to playoffs, with Fnatic being the top of their group. Fnatic had a really rough start to the year, not even making it to the first international tournament, then bombing out of Shanghai after winning EMEA's Stage 1 tournament. Ever since Hero stepped in for Leo, who had to take a break due to health issues, this roster's had a resurgence. They once again look like the best team in EMEA, which is hard for me to say considering how much I love Team Heretics. I feel like people aren't giving Hero enough respect because even though he is a new addition to the roster, he's fit in comfortably on the tier 1 scene. Some of that comfortability may be due to the fact that Hero is surrounded by an amazing team, but even then he is pulling his own weight. The amount of clutches I've seen Hero pull off is insane. Even though a lot of people seem to disagree with me, I think that Hero should be in contention for top 10 players of the tournament.
And Hero called upon. These final moments are so difficult to make that choice for. He's got the first, maybe still a chance, but time is running low, and Ada Captain is trying to play to it. He's got half, I don't think he's got the time. Hero!
I think he does.
Has he got the time? Oh my god! Look at it! Look at that!
Toaster is also really locked in during Stage 2. He must have hit the aim trainers or something because his aim looks a lot more crisp than it did earlier in the year. Like I've said in earlier videos, we're seeing more and more that IGLs need to be able to put up good numbers in addition to being able to call a good game. Toaster seems to have taken that criticism to heart because he's hitting shots that at the beginning of the year, he just wasn't. Although I don't see Fnatic winning champs, I would be disappointed if they didn't at least make top 4. I don't know enough about DRX to make a truly informed decision about them. I have them advancing as my second seed in my pick'ems, but that's mainly because I know the other two teams in this group just aren't that good. DRX is a good team with some really solid players, but I don't see them going too far in playoffs. Maybe only winning one game then crashing out. A statement that might age poorly considering the Fnatic vs DRX game, although I still stand by this statement. Fnatic couldn't clutch up on the first map and gave way too many rounds away on defense to DRX's A main control. Still better than what Crew or Bilibili could do if they made it out of groups though. I think that Crew is an alright team, but alright doesn't cut into champs, when there are 15 other teams all itching for the same trophy. And Bilibili is China's 4th seed in a region that has a lot to prove. Although saying that, the only 2 upsets during week 1 in my bracket were caused by Chinese teams, so maybe I'm not giving them enough credit. In Group B, we have GenG, FPX, Team Heretics, and Sentinels. 3 Masters finalists and FPX in the same group will be a treat, especially considering that one of the 2 teams who will make it out of this bracket will most likely go on to win the tournament. I have GenG and Team Heretics making out of this group. GenG looks positioned to win the entire tournament. Before Champions, the only international game they've lost was against Sentinels in the finals of Masters Madrid, which paints a picture of just how good this team is. GenG want to go for back-to-back international titles, and I believe they can make that happen. They have the fundamentals and the players to do it. Although I'm not cheering for them, unless something goes horribly wrong, I would be dumb not to expect them to win. It's like I can see the future with that statement, because they threw in their game against Heretics. They weren't firing as hard as they usually do and whiffed a lot of shots. Something uncharacteristic for this team. I hope this was just an off day for them because although my bracket isn't perfect in all the groups anymore, I can still get points if GenG makes it to playoffs. I'm just glad that GenG was having an off day when playing Heretics, because they're the team I'm cheering for. They had an amazing Shanghai performance, then Miniboo came back onto the roster and they haven't really looked the same since. They lost some of the spark that maybe Patatech brought to the roster, and it's weird considering that they're now playing with their main squad. I think that Miniboo is putting a little too much pressure on himself to perform, and that's causing him to underperform. He doesn't look like the dominant duelist that I've heard he is, and I don't think the solution to that is to put Woot back on the duelist role. They tried that earlier in Stage 2, and that didn't work out as well as many people expected it to. They're just barely getting by in all of their games, almost always going to a map 3 with at least one of their maps going to overtime or close to overtime. It feels like I'm watching G2's Shanghai run where all of their games will become a map 3 comeback. Although they're getting wins, it's not a sustainable way to play, especially with their once dominant maps of Sunset and Bind looking kinda rough right now. All the pieces are in place for this team to make a deep run into champions. Miniboo just needs to be the spark to light this team on fire, and they need to pray Vitality doesn't make it out of groups because they've had Heretics number recently. recently. Sentinels have been on a downward spiral ever since their loss against G2 where they debuted their deadlock comps. I get that at that point they'd basically already qualified for Seoul off of championship points, but come on, the deadlock comps just aren't finding the impact that Sentinels wanted to. They haven't won a single map since introducing deadlock. I might think she's the worst agent in Valorant, but a lot of pro teams are finding value with her in pro play. Sentinels just isn't one of those teams. They don't understand how to find value out of her util, and that puts them in a lot of sticky situations where they look uncoordinated, especially on defense, which is weird considering that deadlock is a Sentinel, but I digress.
John is stuck here.
They know where he is. There's a banana swarm to try and clear him out of that corner.
If it hadn't missed, John would be a dead man.
Sentinels might also just be running out of steam, complacent with Madrid being their only international win. Sentinels, in my opinion, don't deserve to be at this tournament. They look like the biggest frauds here. John QT isn't calling like he used to, Tens has fallen asleep, and although a lot of people put Zekid in their top 10 best players of the tournament, I personally think he's a bit overrated. Hopefully his team can prove me wrong, but they have to play FPX, a team who has the potential to upset teams, but who are also not yet good enough to make it out of an international group stage. They have some really incredible players, but not enough experience to push them over the edge. I don't know who on Riot Games is paying FPX off. I know games with Sentinels playing get a lot more views than any other game, but come on. FPX looks so dominant in the first half of Bind, but then got clapped on offense, which is fine, but then they pulled out a first-time comp on their second map of Lotus, on their elimination match. What is this comp? And then proceed to slam A almost every single round without finding any value. This series could have been a lot closer if FPX weren't thinking about Riot's viewership. Group C contains Leviathan, Vitality, Talon Esports, and Trace Esports. Someone clearly wanted Leviathan to qualify for playoffs because this bracket looks way too easy for them. Ever since their awful performance in Shanghai, Leviathan looks like an unstoppable force. Everyone on this team, even Calm, has stepped it up to another level. I think they're in the same position as Fnatic, where I don't think they're going to win the tournament, but I expect them to finish in the top 4. I had Vitality qualifying for playoffs alongside Leviathan, but after a loss against Trace Esports, I can't help feeling like I made a mistake. Again, my underestimation of this Chinese scene bit me here. That second qualification spot could honestly go to any of the remaining 3 teams in this group. Finally, we have Group D, containing PaperX, EDG, Foot, and G2. This was the most balanced group, as all 4 teams have a chance of qualifying for playoffs. Having said that, G2 are clearly the best team in this group. They have only improved since Shanghai, but are still unable to lift a trophy. G2 looked dialed in their game against PaperX, a team who has recently looked like that meme of the guy sleeping on the ice for 20 seconds. Just when people are ready to count them out, they have a dominant game, and then go dormant again. A crazy thing to say about a team who only last year was contending for a Champions Trophy. I've heard a lot of people say that PaperX need a proper IGL or that GenG got nerfed due to the race changes, but I think I agree with TMV when he says that the main reason for why this team is failing is because they aren't playing as cohesively as they used to.
And many of you will talk about, all the different things that are wrong. It's their comps, it's, GenG's agent pool, it's, just the overall W gaming philosophy doesn't make any sense, all that. Many of you will have many thoughts, but the truth of the matter, I think, is this. That if you're not on the same page as a team in Valorant at the pro level, things just aren't going to go that well for you.
Last year and a little bit at the start of this year, this team looked like a hive mind, making snappy decisions almost without even thinking about it. Everyone was on the same page, even if the page they were reading from was incorrect. Now it looks like the majority of them want to play a more slightly standard game of Valorant, whereas something wants to continue doing what brought them so much success in the first place, never letting go of the W key, which leads to a lot of moments where kills get offered for free, and their aim can't bail them out of sticky situations anymore. I still have PaperX making out of my groups as second seed though, which may be a little bit of hopium on my part, but I honestly don't see this team making it very far in playoffs. That is if they even make it out of groups at all. Like I said, EDG and Foot are no slouches. There's a real possibility that PaperX in their current state lose to either one of these teams. Foot just need to get out of their own heads and stop playing as if they've already lost the series when down late in a map. And EDG need to lock in and play to their strengths. Earlier on in the year, they were playing Valorant how the rest of the world played Valorant, and ended up underperforming because of it, not winning a single map in their own international tournament. EDG plays best when they're doing their own thing and they're comfortable in their comp. I underestimated them because of their Shanghai performance, but it looks like the changes they made were for the better. I just hope that they can somehow find their way to playoffs. Ultimately though, it doesn't matter who makes it out of the group stage. GenG are winning back-to-back international events. They should have swept the entire year, but Sentinels locked in when it mattered. In my opinion, the top 5 teams teams of this tournament are GenG, Fnatic, G2, Team Heretics, and Leviathan in that order. There's a case to be made for any of these teams to win the tournament, or to at least play each other in a best of 5. Let's be honest, the rest of these teams are just showing up for their international experience at best. I hope that China can show up and look at least a little threatening internationally, because right now they still have a lot of work to do. To end this video off, the switch up from last video is insane when I say Champions points were designed for Sentinels because they're the biggest frauds of this tournament. 100 Thieves should have been in Seoul.
Every single member crumbling. Tonight, Seoul burns red.
Sentinels are really making me eat my words in that outro. But this is what happens when they stop using those dumb deadlock comps. They look like one of the best teams in the world.